The match had just begun. Although Botvinnik remained 1 point behind, this was a minimal shortcoming that was completely compensated by his newly found self-confidence. Knowing that he had won the last 2 games, and he had conducted the 9th game almost flawlessly, my trainer and I thought that the next 2 or 3 games should give us the answer to the pressing question. Would I succeed again, getting into the groove? Or would Botvinnik be able to turn his psychological advantage into a material one? Jumping ahead, let me say that actually the next 3 games, from the 10th to the 12th, were probably the most tense, complicated, and stubborn in the entire match. In this position, we decided, in spite of the fact that it was necessary to play black, to give the world champion a battle. Therefore, we again chose the King's Indian defense. After a small psychological analysis, we came to the conclusion that the Samish variation occupies far from the last place in my opponent's arsenal. To support this, first of all, was the card index of the games of Botvinnik played in recent years, and second of all, a check of the order of moves employed by him in the 6th and 8th games of the match.
This is the second most popular starting move. Controlling the center with an active knight. A solid second move that controls the center and leaves space for the knight to develop. The King's Indian defense prepares to develop the bishop to g7, allowing white to build up a strong center, which black will later try to undermine. Knight c3 prepares the e2-e4 pawn push and helps control the d5 square. Bishop g7 puts the bishop on the long diagonal in a move called a fianchetto. e4 takes full control of the center. d6 controls the e5 square and allows the light-squared bishop to develop. f3 supports the e4 pawn and prepares to develop the dark-squared bishop to e3 and the queen to d2, a common attacking setup versus fianchetto systems. Castling gets the king out of the center and activates the rook. Bishop e3 supports the d4 pawn. White is preparing queen d2 and possibly castling queenside. e5 takes space in the center, attacks the d4 pawn, and controls the f4 square. d5 takes space in the center and controls the important e6 and c6 squares. c6 attacks the d5 pawn and allows the queen to develop on the queen side. Queen d2 develops the queen, creating a battery with the dark-squared bishop, and prepares to castle queenside. c takes d5 captures the pawn and releases some central tension. c takes d5 recaptures the pawn and controls the c6 and e6 squares. a6 controls the b5 square and prepares b5. Very precise. This is not the right idea. This misses a better way to send a knight into the game. This threatens to capture a pawn and win material after the follow-up trades. The best option was to add a defender to a vulnerable pawn. This is the only good move. This maintains the balance in material with a good trade. A straightforward recapture. This threatens to capture a pawn and win material after the follow-up trades. The pawn is now adequately defended. That was a free pawn. The knight is kicked by a pawn and must now move or be captured. This avoids clear danger. This is the only move that works. This kicks a bishop. The clearly correct move for a threatened bishop. The correct move to safety. The better move was to take an open file with a rook. This avoids clear danger. Now white can't stop black from winning a pawn if they make the right moves. The best option was to win a tempo by threatening a queen. The better move was to move a bishop to safety. This allows the opponent to force moving the bishop to a passive square. A clear recapture. This avoids clear danger. Right on target. This takes an open file, a common method for activating a rook. This moves the knight to safety. This is the only good move. This defends the attacked pawn. This forces the opponent to isolate a pawn. A straightforward recapture. This defends a pawn that was under attack and had no defenders. This misses a better way to centralize a knight, so it controls more squares. The best option was to take an outpost with a knight. This permits the opponent to prevent castling. A clear recapture. White develops the bishop and attacks the center. The rooks are coordinated and powerfully doubled on the file. This is the strongest option. The better move was to move a bishop to a more active position. This allows the opponent to challenge the opposing rook for the open file. After all captures, this is an equal trade. A straightforward recapture. This offers to exchange pieces of equal value. The best option was to defend a rook that was under attack. This permits the opponent to take an outpost with a knight. The better move was to take an outpost with a knight. This moves the bishop to a better location, allowing it to control more squares. Very precise. Right on target. The better move was to increase a bishop's scope by moving it to a better square. This threatens to win a bishop by overloading a defender. This stops the opponent from being able to win a bishop by overloading a defender. This is an equal trade. A clear recapture. That's an unfortunate error. This is the strongest option. Black's knight has moved to a square with greater activity and control. This is a fair move. A solid choice. That's fine. There were worse moves, but also something much better. White's bishop has moved to a square with greater activity and control. This is not the right idea. Very precise. This evades the check from the rook. This misses a much better move. This is the only move that works. This maintains the balance in material with a good trade. A straightforward recapture. This moves the bishop to a more active square, making it gain scope. One of the best moves. Right on target. This is the only good move. This steps away from the checking rook. After all captures, this is an equal trade. This makes a passed pawn. This puts the rook behind the other player's passed pawn. This is the only move that works. This evades the check from the rook. This is an equal trade. This threatens to force eventual checkmate. This prevents the opponent from being able to force eventual checkmate. Only one move worked there, and this wasn't it. This stops the opponent from being able to checkmate the king. This steps away from the checking rook. This threatens to win a knight by pinning a piece to the king. This is the way to win a pawn. The best option was to move a bishop to safety. This wins a pawn. This was the only move. This is the only move that works. This moves the rook to safety. This is the strongest option. That pawn was free for the taking. Very precise. This is the only good move. This evades the check from the rook. Placing a rook behind an opposing passed pawn can inhibit the pawn's ability to promote. This puts the rook behind the other player's passed pawn. The clearly correct move for a threatened pawn. The correct move to safety. A very strong play. Capturing while sacrificing the rook was the right idea. Black eliminates the white's passed pawn, removing a future threat. Right on target. This is the strongest option. This evades the check from the rook. Very precise. This is the only move that works. This steps away from the checking rook. A solid choice. Right on target.
Now everything is completely clear. Black cannot cross the Rubicon. If the pawn is pushed forward, white simply brings the rook across and captures. And the position transposes into a theoretically drawn endgame. White then threatens to shift the rook over and begin targeting the pawns directly. Black has no way to stop it. The game continued for a few more moves, after which Black offered a draw. Even attempts such as advancing the pawn while checking with the king give Black nothing, because there is no way to strengthen the position. The only way to save the game is to give up the exchange and play for a draw. And that's exactly what happened. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider supporting the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.